Right. So it's 12 p.m. in Eastern time. So let's get started. Can everyone see my slides okay? Cool. All right. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gerontological Society of America's Emerging Scholar and Professional Organization webinar entitled Job Searching and Networking for Early Career Investigators in Interdisciplinary Research of Aging. This webinar is sponsored by GSA ESPO. As you know, interdisciplinary perspectives and collaborations are increasingly crucial to the field of aging studies. As a result, it's not uncommon for early career scholars to find job opportunities outside their PhD degree. And this often raises questions such as whether I should find a job in another department, or what are the challenges and benefits of interdisciplinary work, and how should I prepare for such career paths. So if you are an early career scholar with similar questions, you are in the right place. Because in today's webinar, we will cover different types of topics, including job searching strategies and networking skills and effective use of social media in interdisciplinary research of aging. So it's my pleasure to introduce our webinar task force team. So I'm today's moderator of the webinar. My name is Yan. I will be also the co-lead of ESPO webinar task force. We have an amazing team making this webinar possible. Our team lead is Michelle Xue, who is a PhD candidate from Duke University. We also have three members. They are Adele from University of Pennsylvania, Claire from Cleveland State University, and Rachel from Indiana University. Rachel will also help to monitor the Q&A features. Thanks, Rachel. And we also thank Jenna to help us with all the logistics. So this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on GSA website. So after the webinar, participants will receive a link to the recording when it's available. And for all the audience, please use the Q&A feature to submit your questions during the webinar or after the presentation. And please know that if the question are highly related to a specific topic, Rachel may ask the panelists to briefly address the question, but more general questions will be held for the Q&A session at the end. We will do our best to address all of your questions. And for today's webinar's agenda, we'll start with the introduction of our panelists. Then I will guide everyone through a list of preset questions. And after that, we will take questions from the audience. All right. So we are thrilled to have the opportunity to learn from a distinguished group of professionals. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Philip Cantu, Dr. Lauren Stratton, and Dr. Taylor Bell to our webinar. Thank you for being here with us. I would like to invite each of you to introduce yourselves and your current position, taking no more than 1 or 2 minutes. And let's follow the name order on the slide. So let's start with Phil, and then Lauren, and then Taylor.
My name is Phil Cantu. I'm an assistant professor in internal medicine in the Division of Geriatrics at the University of Texas Medical Branch. My PhD is actually in sociology. So my kind of experience as being somebody in a different field, I think is kind of something I can share with people here at GSA.
Thank you.
Hi there, I am Lauren Stratton. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Psychosocial Research and Program Evaluation at the Alzheimer's Association. Thanks so much for having me today. Through my role, I have kind of 2 main jobs. I oversee the program evaluation efforts of our Common Core education programs within the association, as well as I oversee our grant-funded projects, psychosocial research projects within the associations, where we're either the Prime Award or we collaborate with other outside organizations on many different dementia-related topics there. And I received my PhD in gerontology at Iowa State. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tyler Bell. I'm a assistant professor at UCSD, but I'm just coming off of a 3-year postdoc within UCSD and got a KO1 to get some funding to become an assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry here. I'm a developmental psychologist trained at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and my work really focuses on Alzheimer's disease, chronic pain, and subjective memory concerns.
Thank you very much. For those interested in learning more about our panelists, we encourage you to refer to their full bios published in the flyer. So thank you. All right, let's get started on the questions. So the first topic has 2 questions, which are more like a warm-up questions to get us started. So first, could you please share with us how you landed your current position in interdisciplinary research of aging and what motivated you the most to pursue this field? And the second question is, how do you leverage your skill set or bring your unique perspectives in another discipline? So maybe we can start with Lauren's experience working in non-academic fields, followed by Phil and Taylor's experience in academic positions.
Sure, I'm happy to start out. So I always knew beginning off that I wasn't interested in pursuing an academic position. So that is kind of what I tailored a lot of my experiences to begin with, all throughout grad school and everything around that. So what really motivated me to pursue this career is I was really interested in the translational science aspect. I really wanted to participate in regularly interdisciplinary aging field, as we all are in. And I really wanted to see how that was applied within the field and how then we could take that application and bring it back into the research. Like I really wanted to see that whole circle kind of completed. So that was a really good fit for where I ended up in the Alzheimer's Association. And obviously I'm really interested in the dementia research field as well. So that just all kind of brought me to my current position. And I would say what kind of led me here was I wasn't interested so much in academic position. I just really thought of other ways to leverage opportunities to push my career forward and into that more applied position, such as I had an internship in a research institute. You know, I worked on a grant within the local Alzheimer's Association, as well as our local government office. I worked on some aging task force. So that just to really enhance my resume in more of like an applied way, as well as also doing conference presentations and other papers and things as you normally would as well. And then I leveraged research experiences in multiple areas as well for that interdisciplinary aspect. You know, I had collaborations on working with the smart home team. So you just to enhance person-centered care research. So you really just get that full rounded experience on how to work with individuals in a lot of different areas. But as that second question says, you then really enhance your own skill set, you bring that to the team. So you know that you're working with individuals in a lot of different areas and they're the experts in those, but you just need to bring your own expertise in dementia care research and as is my experience, or in person-centered care. And that's what you're bringing to the forefront of that, that team or that project. So that's my experience and how I've ended up where I'm at so far. So I'll let either Phil or Tyler take it away on their experiences.
Thanks, Laurie.
Yeah, I can go ahead and jump in. So I was once told that being on the academic job market and getting a job is like giving people advice on how to get a job in the academic job market is like telling somebody how to win the lotto. You know, the academic job market is very hard. And that's to say that a lot of the decisions and a lot of the things that you're going to be hired or not hired for are completely outside of your control and are at some other level that you cannot control. The one thing that you can control is you can work hard and you can do your best, but everyone works hard. Everyone is, trying their best. So it is largely a game of luck. And I would say that I'm really exemplary of that. I had a postdoc here at UTMB starting in July 2020. And I was on the job market and the sociology job market, mostly a couple of public health positions as well, interviewing at other universities at the same time that we got a new chair of internal medicine in UTMB. The Seeley Center that I got my postdoc, or that I was doing my postdoc in, is associated with the Division of Geriatrics, and there was an assistant professor here, a research professor. And I decided I would ask the new chair of internal medicine if he would meet with me so I could talk to him about my future and my future plans. I told him that, I was interested in applying for independent funding in the future, that I thought I would have a better shot at achieving my goals at UTMB than at any other institution, but I was applying to other institutions, interviewing, and, going to have a job next year somewhere. And our new chair had a substantial startup and was able to create a position for me. And that's how I got my position at UTMB.
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, and for me, in undergrad, I was really focused on looking at people in middle age and their health comorbidities, specifically chronic pain, and how it related to their quality of life. And that kind of also led me to pursuing work elsewhere in graduate school to continue doing that type of research. And it ended up at UAB, which has a Roybal Center. And there it is very interdisciplinary. There's nurses, physicians, psychologists, clinical psychologists, developmental psychologists. And that's where I kind of got thrown into aging. And I really enjoyed it because it is such a critical part of our lifespan. And what I kind of bring uniquely to that type of research is my lifespan perspective. The idea that, as older adults, we don't just don't just start at age 60. You have things that are happening at age 30 and before that affect it. So like in my middle age research, I knew that already that you could have tons of health conditions already affect your cognitive decline. And so by the time you show up at age 60, that could look very different depending on what your life was like. And I ended up at this current position after doing a postdoc first at Penn State. And what I did was I followed the research. So where was my research fit? And it happened to be in a department of nursing, and it was a great fit for what I wanted to do. I wrote a lot of papers because I enjoyed the topic. I worked with Rachel actually, and I think we had a pretty good time just doing the research we loved. And I didn't think about what people's degrees were. It was what we could bring to the team. And so for my next postdoc, someone sent me a job ad and they were like, I think this is a perfect fit for you. And I was like, they're not going to let me get this job. It's too good of a job and too good of a postdoc. And so I submitted it anyway, and I heard back and got to UCSD. And it was even more interdisciplinary. So it's neuropsychologist, physicians in the Department of Psychiatry, nurses, anything you could really ask for in an interdisciplinary team, because there's aging centers and Alzheimer's research centers here. And I've been able to bring my unique perspective of middle age and earlier lifespan, specifically into my current position, because we're working with an aging data set of middle-aged older adults that have now gone into age 70. So it's been kind of cool.
Thank you very much. Let's jump to the second topic. So the second topic is about challenges. So we would like to hear from each of you on some of the unique challenges that early career investigators face when searching for jobs or working in interdisciplinary departments or interdisciplinary fields, such like do you find that there's different expectations, different working styles, or have you ever experienced this rule transitions, or how did you make adjustments, and so on. So maybe for the second topic, Phil, as a sociologist working in medical school, would you like to start us off, and then Taylor and Lauren, we would love to hear your perspectives as well.
Yeah, I can say that there are definitely some unique challenges being a sociologist in a medical school. You know, one of the things that I find myself doing a lot of is collaborating with research fellows and medical students. And the sort of collaborations that you do with those type of students are very different than the sort of collaborations you would do with like a social science student that you would work with over the course of, you know, years and develop a research agenda together and help them put together their dissertation. Students in a medical school have very, very clear expectations of wanting to get something published kind of quickly that is going to fit within their sort of portfolio for their own means, which isn't a bad thing. You know, they work hard. It's just their needs and sort of their career goals are very different than that of an academic student, or that of somebody in a PhD. The other thing I'll say is, you know, the tenure review process in a school of internal medicine is different than the tenure review process in a sociology department. So whereas in sociology, it would be teaching, research, and service, in a medical center, it's teaching, research, and clinical service. And so I have zero clinical experiences. I really have to excel in the research and the teaching component. The teaching component for me has to be somewhat different because I'm not going to be teaching, you know, rotations in a medical school. Instead, it comes primarily in the form of mentoring students, postdocs, and fellows. And so that's something that I really needed help with from a mentor. I have a mentor here in the department, Dr. Rebecca Wong, who's actually in the School of Public Health, but she's been very, very helpful in telling me, you know, this is how you set yourself up to be successful in the type of department you're in. If you're going to be in an interdisciplinary school, you have to have mentors who can explain to you what the metrics for success are and how you be successful in your new school, because they might be very different from what you've been trained in.
Thank you. Taylor, do you want to go to the second?
I have a lot of thoughts on this topic, but I'll keep it short. But
Okay.
I would say that, you know, some of the challenges that you face, especially going to like following the research and ending up in some place interdisciplinary, is that people have schools of thought that they've trained in. So usually you'll come into a lab or a department or a field like nursing, where you're kind of like, you don't know a lot of the way they think in terms of thinking, what they've been trained in. And for that, you just have to embrace the learning period of saying, I don't know this, because, you know, my dad always told me someone intelligent always says when they don't know something. And I really do believe that in academia. I trust people when they say they don't know something more than when they always pretend they do. But, and, you know, also highlighting and not being embarrassed to say the skills that you have, because if you're coming from grad school going to a postdoc, you have a lot of imposter syndrome. I still have imposter syndrome sometimes. And you really have to write down, what are my skills? And once you start writing, like for the job market, that's when you actually start getting some of that solidified. And you have to carry that into every meeting you go into, that you are bringing something unique to the team. And you are an expert, you have a PhD or you have an MD or an RN, like you have something that you bring to the table. And the other challenge is that, honestly, moving around for research, you have to like make big personal sacrifices. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, but it's just something that happens. So, you know, you have to move across the country, or you have to, you know, move from countries. And that's not something to take lightly. And I honestly, there used to be a thought that, you know, if you weren't willing to move around, then you weren't serious about your job. But knowing how much it costs, there are opportunities where you can stay in a local area, and I completely understand that decision's personal. And I think our thoughts about that are changing. So it's always something to consider, that there is a big personal cost to pursuing research.
Thanks, Taylor. Lauren, would you like to share your perspectives?
Yes, I will. And please let me know Can you hear me okay?
You're a little bit like cutting up.
I'm gonna turn on my video to see if that helps.
Yeah,
Does it help at all?
yeah.
Okay. Just let me know if it changes and I can add my thoughts into the chat if needed. From grad school to or any role, because that is a very, very real thing that happens, or just apply that to any new role. It can be that can be a hard part of transitioning, is just and moving forward with that. But I think it is just important to, just learn exactly what Tyler was saying. Embrace when you don't know something and really embrace the skill set that you do have. And just know that you got hired in that role for a reason. That's why I'm there. Grad school in the academic world, it was a little hard to transition into that applied world. Like I did just come from such an academic setting that did make that a little bit tricky than trying to figure out the role and the expectations within more of an applied organization. So learning those new roles and expectations was just a new thing to have to figure out. As well as just the enhanced leadership and mentor styles as well. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I feel I can relate a lot with what you just mentioned, like imposter syndrome and life sacrifice. So I think our following topics may have some like a related aspect with this second topic. So let's see. The third topic is about research collaboration in interdisciplinary area. I believe you have touched on this in previous discussion, but we would like to explore further and ask how you would describe what interdisciplinary collaboration looks like in your current setting. And we would also like to hear your thoughts on how early career investigators can balance the need to specialize in a particular area with the need to have a broad understanding of multiple disciplines. Maybe for this topic, Taylor, would you like to kick off this discussion first? And then we can hear from Phil and Lauren.
Yeah, so the way that interdisciplinary collaboration works where I'm at currently is that so many things are center-based and grant-based that there's just a ton of people on the team because NIH requires so much levels of expertise, which really helps us have these interdisciplinary connections. So currently, like in my current lab, we're across multiple universities, and any type of lab meeting call, we have 40 people there and half of them are faculty, and they're clinicians, physicians, and different types of scientists. So it's just kind of pretty natural. I think that the way that grants are set up can make it pretty natural to happen. And I think it also helps when it's really interdisciplinary because it's not like one ruling school or field or thought kind of taking over and everyone feeling kind of out of place because like we're all bringing something unique. So we usually like present work and present new findings and get a broad sense of like input on it. And I'm not a clinician, I'm just a developmental psychologist. So it's really helpful to get that type of input, specifically working with the neuropsychologists and the MDs and seeing their input on what this means for clinical practice and clinical implications. And it's very helpful. So just absorbing and appreciating the talents of everyone has been really useful. And the way I balance specializing in a particular area and a broad understanding, usually my mentors are pretty good at telling me when I need to stop trying to master something. Like my current K grant is to look at neuroimaging measures with chronic pain. And they made sure to tell me, you're not going to be able to master imaging. Like you're going to want to use the end process result of that for your research. And you have to accept that there's a level of expertise that you'll have. So having someone like a colleague kind of tell you like, this is how I see your research And this is a reasonable thing to stop at. Don't stretch yourself thin.
Thank you very much. Phil?
Yeah, I think I can really echo what Tyler's saying about, having to have an understanding of some methods and some research applications that are outside your discipline, but not needing to be a master. As somebody in an interdisciplinary field, you have your own expertise that you bring to research to the field, and so you have to pick up a little bit of other things and other languages and other vocabularies for talking about the research that you're in, but you by no means, like I can't be like an MD, like I'm not somebody who's going to be able to talk to you about very, very specific biological processes, but I'm able to talk to the team about how those processes interact with sort of social constructs, or how we need to take into consideration social context when we're looking at some of the results and some of the research we're doing. And I would say that that's really where I kind of fit in. And that's one of the things I was kind of told when I came into my new position is, when you go into these research meetings, make an assumption that people will not have the sort of baseline understandings of your discipline, and they'll have these sort of blind spots around sociological ideas and social context that you can bring to the table. And the other part of that is that sometimes in those conversations, people are from a different discipline, and they're not necessarily going to be interested in hearing your input. Sometimes it's going to be, okay, that's a thing that you said, and we're going to move on. You have to know how to accept that too, and just be like, okay, that's fine. Nobody wants to talk about educational distributions. It's okay.
Thanks, Phil. How about you, Lauren?
Great. Yeah, I work in an incredibly interdisciplinary setting for more of like our programs and care and support side of things. We collaborate all the time with long-term care providers on all levels, like executive directors to nurses and home health care, as well as we just receive feedback from more like family caregivers and persons living with dementia on all of our programs, and trainings, all of those side of things. So it's so important to collaborate with, the interdisciplinary side of things on that end, as well as, just as Phil and Tyler said, on all of our grant work, we collaborate with all sorts of and it really the work of collaborators and really enhances your network. And I do think it is great to have an understanding, just as Phil was saying, of those areas that you are working with, but I don't think you need to have an incredible interdisciplinary collaboration, is that you're bringing experts together to work on a project, but you need to have an understanding on how that can work with your skill set, but you don't need to have that full expertise in all of those areas.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Before I jump to the fourth question, do you have any any information you want to add about the first three topics? Sorry, I just transfer quickly from questions to questions, but if you want to add anything about these three topics, please feel free to share. Are we good? Cool. Thank you. So the first topic is about networking. We would like to hear your thoughts about how important networking in finding job opportunities and advancing your career in this field. And also what are some effective ways to network and make connections in interdisciplinary research of aging? So maybe for the first question about networking, we can start with Lauren's experience working in non-academic setting, followed by Phil and Tyler.
Sure. I think the networking is pretty important thing. It can help you in many different areas, whether it can help you in your finding your job opportunities and advancing your career, as well as just helping you with
Sorry, Lauren, you are cutting out.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me try one more time, and if it doesn't work, I can add my thoughts into the chat.
Sure, yeah.
I was just saying that it can be a position or to find job opportunities to advance your career, as well as it can help you enhance your interdisciplinary network looking to apply for. Networking is helpful just in any route.
Sorry, Lauren, you are
Your
out too. Do you mind to like tap your
I'll add my thoughts
in the
to
chat?
the chat.
Yeah,
I will.
thank you very much. So maybe we can have Phil to share his perspectives on networking.
I think networking is really important. So my first job out of my PhD was as a program administrator for an R01 called the Hispanic APPEs. It's the data set that I used for my dissertation. And the way that I got that position is I was in contact with the PI of the study throughout my dissertation, telling him, I'm using your data. These are the sort of things that I'm coming up with. And so because of that, he knew that I was a user of his data. He knew that I was going to be finishing my PhD soon. And he, reached out to me and asked me if I would be interested in working as the project administrator for his R01. That said, I think that, depending on who your advisor is and who you work with in graduate school, they can be really good resources for putting you in contact with people who are aware of sort of the larger field. One of the things I wasn't really very aware of as a graduate student that I've become more aware of as a postdoc and as an assistant professor is the kind of the landscape of funding and the meanings of like a researcher being a PI on an R01. That means that person has funding to potentially hire a postdoc or potentially hire some sort or to fund a researcher. And I think being aware of that landscape and being aware of who could potentially have funding is really important, and talking to those people and having relationships with them about your research, about the things that you're doing, is really important and really, really helpful for finding jobs. And to the effective ways to network and make connections, like I said, ask your advisors if they know who the PI on the data that you're working with are, or if they know of networks of people that are in the sort of same realm as what you're doing, because being involved in those networks opens you up to more opportunities and makes you aware of where positions are going to be and what people are looking for.
Thanks, Phil. How about you, Taylor?
So I think networking is, at first I was kind of annoyed with the term networking because it meant like, oh, the job market doesn't seem very fair. But after like going through my postdoc, I see what it actually works like now. And it's really just seeing people that are motivated kind of coming out of like the cloud of different expertise and people that you could hire. You just try to present yourself in the forefront of like, hey, I think I'd be a perfect fit for this. And you do that in an authentic way. And I think the best way to do that is by planning out, like if you're going to GSA or AAIC or different aging conferences, is preparing who do you think is going to be there, who do you think you can meet up with while you're there, and you can just do it just to hang out with them, and learn about their research. You learn more by listening than talking. So I think that's the best way to network, and I've seen that work for people in various levels of their career, even people that want to go off to an associate professor position. That type of networking helps them find those connections. And I think some other effective ways to do it is by joining different subgroups in the society. So don't just join GSA, join the different committees in GSA. That's where you find a lot of people, and you can do that based on topic, etc. And also Twitter. If you're afraid of Twitter, I understand. I didn't want to go on Twitter either. And then COVID happened and I needed to go on Twitter for a lot of things because I was bored. And I really wish I was on there like 5 years earlier. So, and making sure that your work is known on Twitter. So don't just be there and, be a creep on Twitter. Make sure to post and highlight your work and that of like your colleagues and your department.
Thanks, Taylor. I believe we can have like more to discuss about like the use of social mediums on Twitter. Let's like save that for the last question, I believe. Yeah. So Lauren just sent us a note. I'm gonna read Lauren's notes. So Lauren just said, my best thoughts to network is through your current connects, whether other professors, mentors, etc. Have them introduce you to their collaborators, colleagues, and then follow up with them and reconnect next time you see them. Also try to connect on LinkedIn, etc. Yep, I think that's very useful tips for networking. So I think, do you have anything to add for this networking topic? Let's jump to the fifth topic. This is a more like a generic question about your suggestions or your advice to early career scholars. For example, do you think a postdoc position is necessary? And if so, why you think it's necessary? Or maybe you can share with the audience about like, do you think grant application experience be necessary? And also what other research skills and competencies are important for success? So perhaps we can start with Taylor, share his postdoc experience, and also like Phil also can share his postdoc experience, and followed by Lauren. Maybe Lauren can discuss her perspectives on like a grant application experience and research skills.
Yeah, so as a postdoc, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but also as head steward for our postdoc union at the UC system, also have a lot of thoughts on this. So my first thought is that if you have a PhD, you deserve a job and you deserve a fair living. But the way the academic market is and industry is, we need to have so much skills and expertise to compete that the postdoc position is necessary. And there used to be like a stigma that if you had to be a postdoc for more than 2 years, you weren't landing on the market right. And I think that's completely like over now. I think the average postdoc length is about 5 years. And that's just because they cap it and usually move on to something else like a research scientist position or something, because there are so few faculty spots. And I think it is really beneficial to get those years in, to get the additional training. And if you're on an R1 as a postdoc, you get time to actually just push out research and work on, your grant experience and your manuscript writing. So that's something that I don't know how I would have jumped to a faculty position in the demands that it has from grad school. I would not have been ready. And my knowledge of the landscape is so much better now. So I think it is something that is necessary. Now, to go into industry, I'm not so clear on that. I do know that sometimes they don't count postdoc years as experience. So that's something you have to balance out. But if you need additional training in like PCR and other methods, like that is something that you may want to do.
Thanks, Taylor. Phil, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think it's like a one size fits all, and I don't think it's like a one discipline fits all, but I think that for some people a postdoc is necessary and some people it isn't. I think, you know, ideally if your research record is strong enough by the time you're finishing your PhD, you should apply for positions at the assistant professor level. And so the way it works in the sociology job market, at least, is the job market is in the fall. You're applying for jobs in the fall, and if you haven't gotten yourself pretty close to finding a position, in the spring is when sociologists are looking for postdocs, essentially. And so, you know, if you find yourself in a position where you've not found a sociology position in your fall job search, going for a postdoc is fine. That said, you know, the grant application experience being necessary, man, that is a really big part of being in an interdisciplinary center, and it's a really big part of being in and so I would say like a medical school is not your sort of traditional academic institution. It's not an academic institution the way that like a large state school would be in another type of R01 or an R01 institution. But writing grants is like that is the job essentially for your first 2 to 3 years, is finding your self-funding for the first for your time in your position. And so not having that experience and being in an interdisciplinary center would be extremely hard. You know, and some people can pick it up very quickly with the right mentorship, with the right team, could go from having no or very minimal grant application experience to being successful in pursuing independent awards. But it's a really super vital part of being in an interdisciplinary center that was not super emphasized in my sociology PhD, and I don't know how much it's emphasized in other social science degrees. And my sense is that it's not, but it is the primary job of being a researcher in an interdisciplinary center. And then the other like competencies that I think is another thing that I've realized since being in an interdisciplinary center is we have this sort of vague sense of leadership, and people talk about leadership and taking leadership courses. Leadership as a skill is something is not inherent. It is something that you really have to develop, and it is a vital part of being in an interdisciplinary team. And it's something that I myself still struggle with. But to whatever extent you have opportunities to get training in leadership, to leading a team, absolutely vital to success in an interdisciplinary setting.
Thanks, Phil. I totally agree with your point on the leadership training. Yeah. So Lauren just sent notes. I'm gonna read Lauren's notes here. For me, a lot depends on which type of career you are interested in pursuing. It is most important to try to tailor your experiences to what will bolster your CV for that job. Should you attend a program evaluation workshop? Or should you participate in a statistical workshop or learn a new statistics program, apply for grant funding? I think you should have your future career goals in mind and do what you think will provide you skills for that job and take you above other potential candidates. Applying for grant funding and publishing papers will always help you in an interdisciplinary career and will only enhance your network in this area. Thank you. Anyone want to add any information on this topic?
Oh, I wanted to say that I started applying for faculty jobs second out of grad school. So I'm going to echo what Phil said, that even if you don't think you're ready, you need to start your application and send it out, because you don't know what will happen. And I've seen people get like jobs within a year. And it also helps you know where you're lacking to build your CV at. So if you're having to move postdocs or choose what you want to do to build up your CV, it really helps you know where to go.
Thank you very much. Now I think we are jumping to the last topic about social media. How can early career investigators leverage social mediums and other online tools to expand their professional networks and increase their visibility in the field? Maybe Phil start off and followed by Taylor and Lauren. Let's give Lauren more time to type her response.
I actually don't have a whole lot to say on this topic. I have a Twitter that I neglect.
I find that.
But yeah, I think it could be useful for some people. I've not found it all that useful. And at one point there was this trend of people of people like retweeting people who are on the job market. And you know, in sociology, we like one of the first like fundamental pieces that you read is the strength of weak ties and how people find jobs through sort of second degree associations, but not that weak. I mean, like people retweeting you are just not probably going to get you a job. But I get useful information on Twitter. Sometimes I find things useful. I'm not a big Twitter person. That's to say you don't have to be a big Twitter person to be a good researcher or to network effectively or to you know to be in an interdisciplinary setting. I think it can be both good and bad. I think there's a potential liability from being very online as well.
Thanks, Phil. I feel the same because like Twitter gave me a lot of like peer pressure, but also I think it's very useful to get information about jobs and workshops. So it's like a mixed feeling about Twitter. Taylor, do you agree with that?
Yeah, so like Twitter, I think is really helpful to build a sense of academic identity. I don't know how well it works in terms of grabbing other jobs, especially as you move upward in your career. But that's how you are going to know who you need to see at GSA and meet up with, because you'll be like, oh, I know them from Twitter, and you'll link up. If you're afraid of just like starting a Twitter, you can try to join a committee, and if they need help with their social media on Twitter, that's kind of like an easy way to just like slowly start and get a feel for it. But building your own identity, and the number one, there is a liability to being on social media, obviously, but as academics, I think we have a lot to say and a lot of opinions. And the people that do the best on social media are the ones that state their opinions and let it be known. Like if you have a policy thought, and obviously you make it clear that it doesn't represent your institution, but it's also something for you to develop your identity and say what you care about. And that makes it also more fun, and the networking happens more naturally.
Thanks there. I'm gonna read Lauren's notes. I will look towards Phil or Taylor to see if they have more expertise in this area. Yeah, I have heard Twitter can be helpful, as Phil was saying, to promote yourself and your research. Additionally, LinkedIn is the most effective networking tool I have used to maintain connections I have met over time and learn information about job opportunities. Yeah, thank you. Anything you want to add about all the 6 topics? Great. All right. So thank you all of our panelists for sharing your valuable insights and your advice. I've personally learned a lot from your perspectives, and I'm sure our attendees have as well. Now we'll be moving on to the Q&A session. So just a reminder that you can type and send questions using the Q&A feature on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll not be using the raise the hand feature today because our time is limited. We might not be able to go through all the questions, but we will try our best. And now I already saw some questions. So I will now turn over the Q&A session to Rachel, who will facilitating the discussion.
Okay, great. Our first question is, it sounds like strong mentorship has been important for all of you. Do you have any recommendations on forging mentorship relationships across disciplines? Are these formal mentorship relationships, or do they develop organically over time?
Maybe like Taylor will like start off, and then followed by Phil and Lauren.
Yeah, so I think that so you have your formally assigned advisors, and and not every advisor is necessarily a mentor because that takes a certain level of skill. But usually like that is someone that is going to be your mentor. And that doesn't have to be the only person. Like you can have many people that it develops organically around you. Because like in my current lab, for example, where half the team or faculty of this, large group, I would say that many of them are my mentors in different areas. And that also expands disciplines very naturally because all of them have different degrees and backgrounds. But it's really about the personalities that you click with. Like who are you going to mesh well with to actually like be able to, kind of be authentic in what you need criticism on and what you need help on. And because there is some type of level of trust that has to be there. So I would say like, don't think that it has to be just one person. That's why when you develop your K, you do a mentoring team because it's multiple people are there to help you. So that kind of helps.
Yeah, I would say the exact same. I have a formal mentor that's my mentor in my position, and then be open and willing to accept advice. I've found that when I talk to people about my research, about my plans, more senior people are very willing to say, hey, I may not be necessarily from your discipline, but I'm willing to read your materials. I'm willing to have a meeting with you on a regular basis. And, to whatever extent people are willing to offer their expertise and help to you, accept it and, be proactive in that way. I think the more you talk about what you're doing, the more people are able to identify how they can help you, and people want to help you. They want to feel like they can be involved in some way.
Thanks. Lauren said, I think it's a little of both between formal mentorship and ones that develop over time. Some mentorships may develop more formally based on grant applications or projects that you are working on. But if you have an interest in a certain topic and have networked with someone in that area, I would try to stay in contact and express interest in developing further meetings with them or learn from them in some way. Thanks, Lauren.
Okay, our next question is, do you have any advice on framing your research in a cover letter for hiring committees outside your field?
How about like Phil go first, and then followed by Taylor and Lauren?
Yeah, I was actually gonna look at some of my old job applications, because I remember that being like a big part of applying for jobs outside of my discipline. I think you just have to make the connections that are reasonable. Say, I think that my research aligns with the goals of your center in XYZ ways. My expertise is this, which builds upon the expertise of whatever the department, whatever the position is. You have to sell your strengths in your cover letter, and no matter if you're looking for a job in your field or another field. I think the kind of the difference between applying for an interdisciplinary field is you need to talk about how your strengths build upon the strengths of the university, of the center, of the program that you're applying to. Pitch yourself as not necessarily being somebody outside of their field, as much as somebody who's bringing a new perspective to their field.
Yeah. Taylor, would you want to say something? Yeah.
I would say that, I'm going to give the idea of like cover letters for postdocs more, because that's more of what my experience has been. But doing exactly what Phil said about finding out what is their program, what is their department, and what is their research team, and how do you add to it, like the missing pieces. Avoiding jargon that's specific to your discipline, I think, is really helpful. Like writing more in a public health importance way, like kind of when you write your grant, you write your significance statement. That's kind of what you want to put in the first part of your cover letter of like, I do this research because there's this public problem, and this is how I address it and how we'll build to your department. And that's where you really want to build your own identity, because it shouldn't matter what you apply to. I don't think you'd want to be in a department where you would have to mesh so much around in your cover letter that it wasn't you, because you wouldn't be happy in that department. And also just letting other people read your work and being like, what do you mean by this? Because sometimes you're so stuck in your research questions that the meaning of what you're actually doing isn't as simple anymore. So just pulling back and having your colleagues review it is really helpful.
Thanks, Taylor. Lauren shared some like similar thoughts about like don't use too much jargon in your cover letter if isn't their area of research. Overall focus on making it digestible and understandable. Also highlighting the interdisciplinary nature of your research is very important, and why it is important to the area you're applying to. Thanks, Lauren.
Next question is, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and advice. How would you bridge the gap between your research and your colleagues' understanding of your work or achievements, especially when it comes to tenure evaluation?
Maybe Bill and Taylor, you can share that because you're working in the tenure track position, right?
Are we both med school, Phil?
Yeah, I've been in medical school as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know, as I can't really speak that much to. I'm part of a junior faculty association where we have conversations about this, and I don't think that there's a real sort of simple solution to this, because papers in my discipline that would be considered, a very good journal, very good impact score, are not necessarily going to be judged the same way that other people in internal medicine might. And so, I think the best you can do is have conversations with people in your university about what are the expectations, what are the benchmarks that you're meeting, what are the things that you're doing that are reflective of your success.
Yeah, I know it's my junior faculty friends have this issue in interdisciplinary fields who are tenure track. And a lot of it has to do with like the journal stuff, like when they review their tenure application and seeing that, oh, I don't know if you're ready because you haven't published in these big journals that we like. And you have to explain, well, this is my field and this is an equivalent to what you're wanting. And I think the best way to do that is to meet with your faculty mentor often, and so that they can see, well, I think this is not this is a weakness, and you have to explain why it's not, and how are you going to clarify that to the people reviewing your tenure package. So yeah, I think it's constant colleague discussions.
All right.
Sorry. One final question. For people who have already started a tenure track position at a traditional school but are interested to work at an interdisciplinary school later on, how can they identify job opportunities?
Maybe still like Taylor go first, and followed by Phil, and let's Lauren, if you would like to share anything, feel free to type your responses.
Yeah, I would say that looking out for job ads on LinkedIn as well as Indeed is really useful, was useful for me, not necessarily for applying to assistant professor positions per se, but for for postdocs, definitely. And making sure that you don't apply through those websites, like you actually go and maybe you contact the person who's posting it to see if you're a fit before you fully apply. That kind of helps you kind of just know whether or not this person has an interest in you instead of wasting all your time, especially if it's a big application. And then for assistant professor jobs, I think one of the best things was that I had colleagues above me that already landed their faculty jobs that were constantly sending me stuff from the GSA. I think GSA has a job posting board, and I'd constantly get emails from everybody. And they were like, I'm sorry if I'm bombarding you with these emails every week, but I'm like, no, just send them. I may not reply to all of them because that's exhausting, but I definitely look at all of them because I need all the help I can get. So finding out what those listservs are and asking your colleagues where they found theirs, especially like the public health ones, those are the most beneficial, I think, because they include everything.
Yeah, and I would say that, you know, it's the same sort of job search that you go through as a graduate student looking for their first position, or as an assistant professor who's up for tenure review, who's going to be applying to other positions for leverage. You know, I think it's just sort of that same sort of bucket of opportunities. I will say that I would think that if you're coming from a traditional school, if you're coming from maybe like an R2 university, or even like a small liberal arts college, but you've been productive as a researcher and you're wanting to be in a more research intensive interdisciplinary center, one thing that you can do is come with specific aims for a grant that you're going to apply to. I think that's, you know, that is the name of the game in these interdisciplinary centers. And so coming with this sort of known quantity of what you're planning on doing is really helpful in getting you that type of job, or showing that you're a good fit for that type of position.
Thanks. Looks like we don't have further questions, but do you have anything to add about the Q&A or also other the topics we just discussed? No?
I think one thing I just want to say is that, like, as researchers, the drive to want to succeed can outweigh like our mental health as well as our own identity. So those two things work hand in hand. So don't burn yourself out looking for jobs and networking. Take care of yourself, because you're the most important person, and who you're going to bring to an interview is going to be that person. So make sure to like know yourself, know your identity, and take care of yourself first.
Thanks, Taylor. I think this is a very useful tip. All right. Well, it looks like we've come to the end of our time together. I just want to take a moment to express my gratitude to our amazing panelists for generously share their insights. We had a really engaging conversation, and I hope everyone was able to take away some valuable insights and ideas. Although, thanks again to Jenna for helping us with all the logistics. Before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone a link to the recording will be sent to you once it becomes available. If you would like to check more information, please visit this website. Additionally, we value your feedback, and a brief survey will automatically launch after the webinar. Your thoughts and opinions are crucial for us to improve the webinar's quality. So please take a moment to click on the survey link at the end of the session. So once again, thank you so much for participating. This is the end of the program. Thank you very much.
Wow.